She shattered a plate. Not by accident, not even in anger. She just stood there in the kitchen, held it for a moment, and then dropped it. Like she was done pretending. The porcelain exploded across the tile like it had been waiting to fall apart for years. Just like us. I didn't flinch. I just stood still, holding a spoon in one hand and a tub of yogurt in the other, like an idiot. "You think I'm joking?" she said, voice low and deadly calm. "You think this is some stupid phase?" I didn't answer, because I'd already stopped trying to make sense of what was happening. In the last 2 days, she'd gone from sighing over laundry to screaming in her sleep. From ignoring me in the mornings to blurting things out at random, like some part of her was glitching under pressure. But today was different. Today she stood in front of me in our kitchen and said words I will never forget, even if I live to be 100. "I was going to wait," she said, eyes locked on mine. "I was going to wait until after your birthday. But I can't. I need you to hear this now, because if I don't say it, I'll explode." I nodded like a scared child. She exhaled. "I'm happier without you, Len. You make everything heavy. You walk around like a question mark. I can't breathe with you in the house." I tried to blink, but even my eyes felt frozen. She wasn't yelling. She wasn't crying. She was just done. Then came the part that cracked something inside me. "You love me like I'm a dying bird," she said. "And I'm tired of being pitted." She turned her back to me after that, picked up her phone, started texting like we hadn't just ended 17 years with a plate and a sentence. I left the yogurt on the counter, walked to the front door, slipped my shoes on without tying them. I remember hearing the soft thud of her laughter behind me. Not at me, not for me, just away from me, like I'd already been deleted. And that's when I did it. No note, no goodbye, not even a dramatic pause. I pulled the door closed behind me, gently, without drama, without a sound. That was the last time she ever saw me. And by the time she realized what she'd really said, by the time she reached for the version of me she thought would always be there, I was already gone. The funny thing about disappearing is that nobody notices right away, especially if you've been fading for a while already. The first 24 hours passed without even a ripple. No calls, no texts, not even a question mark. I sat in a rundown motel room off a quiet exit ramp, listening to the hum of the mini fridge and watching the shadows crawl across the ceiling. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared. It felt like I'd died, and the world kept spinning like nothing had happened. I checked my phone maybe 30 times that day. Nothing. I wasn't expecting a love letter. I wasn't even hoping for regret. Just something. Some sign that I was missed. But nothing came. Until the second evening. At 8:17 p.m., her name finally lit up on my screen. "Hey, can you grab oat milk on your way home? We're out." I stared at that message for so long my eyes started to sting. "No, where are you? No, are you okay? Just oat milk." As if I hadn't walked out of our life 40 hours ago. As if I hadn't stood in front of her like a man unraveling while she calmly peeled herself away from me like old wallpaper. I didn't answer. I just closed the screen and turned the phone face down on the cracked nightstand. Then, I picked up the envelope I'd left on the entryway table the morning I left, the one I knew she hadn't opened yet. Inside were 5 things. The spare key to our house, the passcode to the shared savings account, the last grocery receipt I paid for, the gold necklace she gave back to me during one of our arguments last fall, and a single note, scribbled in shaky ink. "Since I'm not needed anymore, I won't be around to disappoint you." The next morning, she called. I didn't answer. Then came the second message. "Where are you? I just saw your note." What does that even mean? Still, I didn't respond. It wasn't out of spite. It was because I had finally learned that my silence said more than my apologies ever did. For years, I apologized for everything. For being tired. For being quiet. For not being fun enough, exciting enough, fast enough. I apologized for breathing wrong. And she let me. That was the worst part. She let me twist myself into something unrecognizable while she floated above it all, arms crossed, waiting for me to stop being so difficult. But I wasn't difficult. I was drowning. By the third day, the messages became less casual. "I think we should talk. This isn't funny. Ken, seriously. Where are you?" Still, I said nothing. I didn't even read the longer ones. I'd started sleeping during the day and walking at night. Through neighborhoods I didn't recognize. Past empty driveways and flickering porch lights. I watched people live lives that still made sense, and I wondered how many of them were one quiet sentence away from vanishing too. Then, on the 5th night, she called again 7 times. I didn't pick up, But the final voicemail broke something in me. She was crying. Not the loud, dramatic kind of cry. Just quiet sniffles between words. She said, "I didn't mean what I said. I was angry. You know I say dumb things when I'm angry. I didn't mean it. Please. Just call me, okay?" But I didn't. Because here's what I finally understood. I wasn't angry anymore. I was empty. And you can't fix what someone destroyed on purpose. That kind of damage doesn't glue back together with a few tears and a voicemail. It takes rebuilding from dust. And dust is all I had left. So I sat there, in that motel room with a flickering ceiling light, and whispered into the quiet, "She doesn't get to pull me back now. Because she said she was better without me." And now, I believed her. I don't even know what I was looking for that night. I told myself I was just driving to clear my head, but that was a lie. I drove past the house. Our house. The place where we spent holidays, where we fought over curtains and kissed under burnt-out light bulbs. I parked 3 houses down, engine off, headlights dark, like some pathetic ghost too cowardly to knock on his own door. And then I sat there, in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel so hard it left marks in my palms, and I watched her through the window. She was dancing. Not full-on spinning in circles, no. Just swaying in the living room, barefoot, holding a glass of something dark and humming to herself. The television was on, volume low, casting flickering shadows behind her. She looked happy. Effortlessly, genuinely happy. And that's when I felt something colder than jealousy. I felt replaced. Like someone had slid a new life over mine and pressed down until the wrinkles disappeared. There was no sign that I'd ever lived there. No dent in the couch cushion where I used to sit. No coffee mug with my chipped initials. Nothing. It was as if I had evaporated, and she had opened the windows to let the rest of me drift out. And then a man stepped into view. Not dramatically. Not shirtless or smug like in movies. Just there. Holding a bowl of popcorn and wearing socks that weren't mine. He said something to her, and she laughed. That same laugh from the freezer aisle. Light, unbothered. I didn't move. Not even when he leaned over and kissed her shoulder, the one I used to rest my head on when I couldn't sleep. They watched a movie together. I watched them watch each other. 37 minutes. That's how long I sat there, counting every blink, every shift in her smile, every time he reached for her hand like it was his by right. At one point, she got up to refill her glass, and I could see her phone on the table. She had called me again earlier that day. Twice. Left another voicemail. But now, it was turned off. Or maybe on silent. Either way, I realized she wasn't waiting for a reply. She already had one. I drove off after that. Not in a rage. Not even in grief. Just numb. Like I'd finally seen the part of the story I was never meant to read. The epilogue where I no longer belonged. I didn't cry. Not until I hit the stoplight 2 miles away and remembered the night we painted that living room wall together. She picked the color. I spilled half the can. We laughed so hard we ordered pizza and never finished the job. That stain was gone now. Painted over. Neatly. Clean. By the time I got back to the motel, something inside me had calcified. Not anger. Not revenge. Just a dull, hollow confirmation that she'd already let me go long before I left. She just didn't have the guts to say it. So she broke plates. Pushed me away. Waited for me to take the hint and vanish on my own. And I did. And now that I had, she could finally play innocent. Like I'd abandoned her. Like I was the one who gave up. But I didn't give up. I just saw the truth, and this time, I chose not to stay blind. Because that man in her living room? He didn't steal her from me. She handed herself to him, with both hands and no hesitation. I was half asleep, lying on top of the covers in that damp motel bed, when the phone rang. Unknown number. For a second, I thought about ignoring it. I've been doing that a lot lately, but something made me swipe to answer. I didn't speak, just waited. There was a pause, then a familiar voice came through, shaky and low. "Ken? Oh. I didn't mean to call you." It was her mother. Valerie's mom, Elaine. A woman who once baked me apple pie and called me her bonus son on Thanksgiving. I hadn't heard her voice since before I walked out. Not once. Not even a polite text. But now she was here on the line, and her accidental call felt like something more than just a mistake. I cleared my throat and said, "It's okay. You already dialed. Might as well say what you need to say." She hesitated. Then she said something I never expected. "I thought you should know. She's been doing this for a while now. The disappearing. The pushing. You're not the first." I sat up straight. "She does this," Elaine continued. "Burns everything down when she feels cornered. then plays victim when there's nothing left. I was silent. Every word hit like a slow punch to the chest. Not because it was new, but because deep down, I'd always known something was off. I just thought I was the reason. She told me she didn't need you, Elaine said. That she felt free again. But the look in her eyes when she said it, it wasn't freedom. It was panic. I didn't know whether to feel vindicated or crushed. Maybe both. I whispered, "Why are you telling me this now?" She paused. Then, softly, "Because I think she expected you to chase her. And when you didn't," she started unraveling. I looked around the motel room, the ugly green carpet, the tiny microwave, the buzzing lamp in the corner, and I realized this place had become my sanctuary. My own version of hiding. I thought I was weak for leaving. But maybe, for once, I'd done the strong thing. I didn't say much after that. Elaine said she was sorry, and I believed her. Before we hung up, she told me one more thing. She won't say it, Ken, but she knows what she lost. After the call ended, I stared at the ceiling for a long time. My heart didn't race. It just ached. Quietly. The way it always had. It was never the dramatic betrayals that broke me, it was the slow erosion. The way she made me feel like I was in the way. Like my love was some kind of inconvenience. Like every effort I made was a pebble in her shoe. I remembered one night, months before it all fell apart. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, and I walked in with a plate of cookies I'd baked. Yes, I baked them. I thought it'd be a nice surprise. She looked up and said, "Are you bored or just trying too hard?" That was the moment I should have known. The moment I should have left. But I didn't. Because I thought love meant enduring. I thought real men stayed even when it hurt. But all it really did was teach her that she could keep walking away, and I'd always be there when she circled back. Not anymore. I still hadn't responded to any of her messages. I didn't block her. I wanted her to see the silence and feel it. I wanted her to scroll through our old texts and wonder when I stopped loving her back. The truth? I hadn't stopped. I still loved her in the same broken, exhausted way you love an old photo, something that once meant everything but now only hurts to look at. That night, I folded the clothes I had, packed my bag, and left the motel. I didn't go back to her. I didn't even tell anyone where I was going. I just drove. Past the city lights, past every memory. I needed somewhere quiet. Somewhere far enough away that her name wouldn't echo anymore. Because now I knew. She never lost me by accident. She let me go. And now that I was really gone, she wanted to pretend it never happened. I don't even remember why I logged into the home camera system. Maybe it was a twisted kind of curiosity. Maybe I needed confirmation that she'd moved on while I was still stuck in limbo. Whatever the reason, on the 6th night after I left, I opened the app on my phone. The login still worked. She hadn't changed the password. I tapped the date, selected the front hallway feed, and hit play. The screen flickered. Static. Then the image stabilized, and I watched myself leave. I watched my own back walk through that door, slow and slumped, like a man quietly surrendering to a war no one else knew was happening. But it wasn't that part that made my stomach twist. It was what happened after. 5 minutes later, she came into frame, still in her robe, holding the note I'd left on the table. Her expression wasn't shock or sadness, it was annoyance. Like I'd inconvenienced her. She didn't sit down, didn't cry. She muttered something I couldn't hear and tossed the envelope onto the counter like junk mail. Then she poured herself a glass of wine, took out her phone, and smiled. That smile, it didn't belong to someone who had just been left. It belonged to someone who had been waiting for it. She called someone, a number I didn't recognize, and within an hour, a car pulled up outside. He walked in like he owned the place. The same man I'd seen through the window that night. He kissed her before the door even shut behind him. I paused the video. Then I rewound. Then I watched it again, because some part of me still didn't believe it. Not just the timing. Not just the fact that she had someone waiting in the wings. What shattered me was how easy it was for her. Like she had rehearsed it. Like I was a placeholder she could finally release. She didn't say my name once. Didn't glance toward the camera. Didn't hesitate. They laughed. Toasted. Sat on the same couch where we used to hold hands under a blanket on rainy days. Where I once fell asleep with her head on my chest, dreaming about forever. But forever had a backup plan. I closed the app and sat in silence for over an hour. Not because I was shocked, but because the final, ugly truth had finally cemented in my chest like stone. I wasn't her mistake. I was her waiting room. A layover. A safe, predictable place until something more thrilling came along. And she hadn't just let me walk away, she cleared the runway. Told me I made everything heavy, told me she could breathe without me, and then gave my seat away before it even cooled down. I don't know why, but I whispered thank you into the empty motel room. Not because I was grateful, but because at least now, there were no illusions left. No lingering doubts. No hopeful rewrites. It was all right there, recorded and time-stamped. The end. Documented. Permanent. I stood up, grabbed my coat, and walked out into the cold night air. For the first time in weeks, I felt the urge to laugh, not because anything was funny, but because it was also perfectly cruel. I had spent years tiptoeing around her moods, worrying about saying the wrong thing, trying to keep her from drifting. And the whole time, she was already halfway gone. I wasn't losing her. I never had her to begin with. I left that night for good. Deleted the camera app. Turned off my phone. I didn't know where I was going yet, but I knew exactly where I wasn't going back to. Because now I understood, the real betrayal wasn't the kiss on the couch. It was the years of pretending that I was enough. I hadn't spoken a single word to her in 9 days. Not a call. Not a message. I was still alive, still breathing, walking, eating fast food I didn't enjoy, but somewhere deep inside, I'd stopped existing in the world we built together. That world had collapsed the second I saw her pop a cork and slide into a new man's arms like he'd always been part of the furniture. But then, on the 10th day, I broke my own rule. I opened my phone. There were 26 unread messages. The last one stopped me cold. You were right. I broke it. I think I broke everything. My fingers hovered over the screen like they belonged to someone else. I read the message again. And again. And for a stupid second, a dangerous second, I almost replied. My brain began racing. What if this was the moment? What if this was her finally waking up? The apology I used to dream about, not the superficial kind, but the real one, the one where she saw me again. But no, I couldn't afford to get pulled back by 13 harmless words typed into a screen at midnight. Not after what I'd seen. Not after what I knew. Still, I couldn't help but open the earlier messages, trying to trace the unraveling of her confidence. The first few were cold and clipped. This is childish, she wrote. You can't just vanish. Then came frustration. You're acting like a victim again, Lynn. This is why we struggled. Then silence for a day. And then, desperation. I miss the way you used to look at me. Before everything got so heavy. She followed it with a photo. An old one. Us on the beach 3 years ago, mid-laugh, sunburned and exhausted, holding each other like nothing could break us. I remember that day. I remember carrying her flip-flops because she said the sand was too hot. I remember thinking I was the luckiest man alive. Now the memory felt like someone else's life. And that's when something inside me shifted. I finally understood what had made this whole thing so devastating. It wasn't just that she let me go, it's that she made me believe, for so long, that I was hard to love. That I was the problem. That I needed to fix myself to deserve the bare minimum. She never said it out loud. She didn't have to. It was in every sigh when I asked how her day was. In every eye roll when I brought up therapy. In every moment she gave her attention to her phone instead of to me. She trained me to believe that being tolerated was the same as being loved. So I didn't reply. I turned off the phone again and let the message sit there, unanswered. She had finally said the thing I'd been waiting years to hear. And I didn't believe a single word of it. Not because I thought she was lying, but because even if she meant it, it was too late. You can't put out a fire after the house has turned to ash. That night, I walked out of the cheap room I'd been living in and sat on a bench under a broken streetlight. I looked up at the sky, and nothing poetic, no perfect full moon, just a smear of stars over cracked pavement, and whispered to myself, she doesn't get to pull me back now. The next morning, I packed everything I had into the trunk of my car, which, honestly, wasn't much. A backpack, a few shirts, a worn-out hoodie she once told me made me look like a tired raccoon. I smiled when I remembered that. Not because it was funny, but because I no longer cared what she thought of me. Somewhere between her silence and her sudden regret, I had recovered something I didn't even know was missing, my sense of enough. I wasn't perfect. I wasn't thrilling or rich or unpredictable. But I was enough. For years, I bent myself into impossible shapes just to keep her interested. Now, I was done bending. So when she texted again, please talk to me, Lynn. Just talk to me. I didn't answer. I didn't even open it. Because I finally realized that talking was never the problem. The problem was that she never listened until the echo of my absence made her ears ring. And by then, I was already too far away to hear her. It was somewhere past the state line, an hour past sunset, and I hadn't spoken a single word all day. I didn't need to. The road hummed beneath the tires, and that was enough. I'd passed gas stations, long stretches of empty land, and towns so small they didn't even bother with stoplights. I didn't know exactly where I was headed, just away. Away from the house, the couch, the door I shut behind me without a sound. But just as the road curved near a faded sign that read Oakville 12 miles, my phone buzzed. One notification. A text. No name. Just a number I didn't recognize. I pulled over into a gravel turnout, switched off the engine, and opened the message. It was a photo. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. It was grainy, taken at night through a car window. But then it hit me like a brick to the chest. It was Valerie, standing outside our house, crying, alone. But that wasn't the part that twisted something in me. She was holding something, my old hoodie, the one she always hated, the one I threw into the back seat of my car when I left. But it wasn't in the car anymore. Somehow she had it. I stared at the photo for minutes, numb and confused, until a second text came through from the same number. She's been waiting on the porch every night since you disappeared. She thinks you might come back. I didn't know who sent it. No name. No explanation. Just silence after that. I waited, expecting more. Nothing came. I sat there for what felt like hours. Something cold crept into my spine. Not regret exactly, but something like it. The knowledge that even now, even after everything, a part of me still cared if she missed me. And I hated that. I hated that even knowing what she did, I still had to wrestle the thought that maybe she was hurting too. But then I remembered what I saw on the security footage. The wine. The man. The smile. I remembered how easy it looked for her. And I knew this photo, whatever it meant, whatever it was trying to provoke, couldn't erase that. Still, I couldn't sleep that night. I booked a room in some roadside place where the air conditioner rattled like it had something personal against me. I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering if someone had sent that picture to guilt me into turning around. Was it her? Had she asked a friend to send it? Or was it someone else? Maybe her mother again. Maybe someone who thought they were helping. I didn't know. And in the end, it didn't matter. Because whether she stood on that porch for 5 minutes or 5 hours, it didn't change what she'd already done. She didn't fight for me when I was standing in front of her, exhausted and trying. She only started looking once I was gone. I thought about replying. Just one sentence. Too late. But I didn't. Because she'd never understood what it took to walk away. She thought I disappeared out of pride. Out of weakness. But the truth is, I left because I finally accepted what she wouldn't say out loud, that she didn't love me anymore, and hadn't for a long time. Maybe she did in flashes. In memory. But not in reality. And definitely not in action. The photo proved nothing. Anyone can cry under the porch light when no one's watching. But love isn't about mourning after destruction. It's about not lighting the match in the first place. So I closed the phone, dropped it face down on the floor, and whispered to the dark room, she's not waiting for me. She's waiting for someone easier to forgive. And I wasn't that man anymore. It happened 2 weeks later. I was renting a little place by a lake, not because I'd always dreamed of it, but because the price was low and the air was quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't ask questions. I spent most days walking along the water's edge or sitting on the porch with a cheap cup of gas station coffee, letting time pass without asking it for anything. My phone barely rang anymore. I'd turned off every notification. Blocked her number eventually, not out of anger, but because I realized I didn't need to keep looking backward to move forward. But then a letter came. A real one. Handwritten. No return address. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity still had teeth. Inside was a single page. The writing was messy, like her hand had been shaking. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even long. Just this. I never thought you'd leave. You were the only constant I ever had. I was selfish. I confused stability with boredom. I was wrong. I know I lost you. I just needed you to know that before you disappear completely. I sat with it for a long time. Folded it. Unfolded it. Read it again. And then, for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the ache anymore. I didn't feel anger either. Just stillness. A kind of quiet understanding that healing had already begun without me noticing. I didn't cry. I didn't clutch my chest. I smiled. A small, sad, honest smile. Because she finally told the truth. And because it didn't change mine. That evening, I walked into town. I sat at a small cafe and ordered pancakes for dinner. The waitress smiled and said, "That's my favorite, too." Her name was Tess. Not flashy. Not overly sweet. Just warm. Present. When she brought the check, she said, "You don't talk much, but you seem like someone who's been through a lot." I hope this place gives you some peace. And I don't know why, maybe it was the calm of the lake or the sound of a stranger noticing me without judgment, but I said, it already has. We talked for a while after that. Nothing deep, nothing forced. Just two people being where they were without needing it to mean anything else. I didn't go home with her. I didn't ask for her number. I just paid the check, walked outside, and stood under the street lamp as the wind moved through the trees. And that's when it hit me. Not everything broken needs to be fixed. Some things just need to be left behind, gently, so you can carry yourself forward without dragging the wreckage. So no, I didn't go back. I didn't write her a final reply. I didn't try to prove anything. Because for the first time in my life, I realized that walking away doesn't make you weak. Sometimes, it makes you whole. And I was finally getting there. One quiet morning at a time.